Hi guys, Amanda from Whitewood Acres, and thanks for joining me today. Here in southeastern Ontario, growing zone 6B, we got a gnarly frost last night. It's the middle of October, and I was just thinking today would be a good day to dig up my canna lilies. Canna lilies are a really cool flower. I had some this year that were like 9 feet tall. They were so majestic. And something that I really love about canna lilies is that every year they go under the soil and they make tons of babies. So I actually make quite a bit of money on my canna tubers in the spring. This year I planted my biggest and best in my gardens where I wanted them to be a focal point, and I had a lot of really small ones that were broken off or that only had one eye, and I just dedicated a row behind my garage and I planted them all so they could go under the soil and reproduce, and I would have lots of tubers for next year to sell. I sell the big ones for $5 a piece, so you know, some people come and buy 100 and you do the math. So it's a good little side hustle for sure. But here in Canada, we have to dig them out if we want to have them again next year, or we're going to the store to buy more. I'm way too cheap for that. So today I'll show you how I dig them out of the ground and what my process is for overwintering.
Come on, chickens.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get my pitchfork and kind of get as far to the outside as I can and try and pop this out. Let's see what we got. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough room that you're not stabbing the tuber. So poke around, make sure you're not hitting anything. Try and get underneath it. It should pop right out. There we go. That's a nice one. Can get a better look at it. All right, so here's a perfect example. Now this one has divided. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eyes now. So I'm because the eyes are a little smaller, I'll probably divide it 3 ways. But you can see how much they really reproduce under the soil. So 1 has now become 3. Oh, that's my bag. Awesome. It's another like 7 to 10 heads. So these went in as either single or double eye, and now they've grown to 10. So you can see how I make money off of these in the spring. So even if you have small ones that may not flower, none of these in this row flowered this year because they were so small when I put them in. But the point of growing them this year was just simply to multiply them, because now they've grown to a size where if they are planted next year, they will certainly flower. So if you break off little pieces that you know probably won't give you a flower, go ahead and plant it, because you will get more to plant for the next year. Okay, so I've gotten all these dug out here, and I'm going to start preparing them for storage. The first thing we're going to do is just cut all of these stalks off. Okay, so I've got my stalks off. I'm going to go ahead and get some of the big roots as well. It's nice if you can get a few days where you can lay them out in the sun to dry, but we got a very hard frost last night, so I can't risk the damage to them. Now, these are good looking tubers. They really multiplied. So when you are putting your tubers away, the next step I'm going to show you, this is what you want them to look like. Not like this. Don't put your tubers away looking like this, full of dirt. I can tell you this, I was gifted a big bag of them and they were full of dirt, and that's how they overwintered, and not a single one of them survived. So when these are like this, they'll cure on the outside, and they'll, like an onion, they'll make like a nice protective wrapper, a little paper wrapper, and that's what you want to protect them over the winter. So do not put them away full of wet roots and dirt like this. The other thing is you're going to be dividing a lot of these, so if they're full of dirt, you can't really see what you're working with here, where your dividing points are going to be. So clean them up first. And I don't recommend doing it with a hose, because you do want these to dry up, and that's how they're going to overwinter. Not really dry up, but kind of, like I said, cure a little bit. So you don't want to add extra moisture to them. So I would never hose these off. I'm sure there's people that have and have been successful, but it's not my advice. Okay, so these guys are all cleaned off. They have no dirt, free of roots and dirt and debris. And one thing I did forget to mention is each bulb, I saved a couple examples, is gonna have a little spent area that's done. It's not gonna come back, and you can tell because it's black. So the top might look okay, but it's not. So what you're gonna do is just snap the entire thing right off. That's what you want it to look like. You don't want any dead bits. Okay, well, I've moved into my garage, so pardon the clutter behind me, but it is the garage after all. So I'm now going to be putting these away. I just so happen to have a basket of these that have already been sitting out for a few days. It's nice if you can leave them out for about a week just to kind of get rid of some of the excess moisture. And you can see how these have already kind of developed a little bit of a husk, and they've gotten a lot darker. So these are ready to put away. I'm going to use a peach basket. Peach basket is my favorite because it's rigid and allows for airflow. And another good alternative is a burlap sack. Burlap sacks are great for a multitude of things, but I'm going to use the peach basket. So I have shredded a bunch of newspaper here. I just tore up a bunch by hand, and I'm just going to kind of fluff it around here and make a nice thick little bed for them to set on. And then I'm going to lay my tubers out. I don't know if you can see this. I'm just going to lay them in a flat, one single layer, not touching each other. You want to kind of leave a little space in between each one. Then they can cure and dry out over the winter. You don't really want them laying on top of each other because they can end up growing mold and other funguses and just rotting altogether. So I'm just going to layer newspapers and tubers until your basket is full. Okay, so this basket is full. I was really careful to layer everything so none of the tubers are touching each other, and there's a nice layer of newspapers in between each layer, and on top is a nice thick layer of newspapers as well. And these are going to stay in my garage. We have a wood stove in this garage that we run during the day, and at night we just let it go out. So it usually gets down to just above, maybe just a little below freezing in here. So I keep these on the cooler end of the garage, but where they won't get frozen. But they can still get lots of airflow and dry out and just stay undisturbed until the spring when I'm ready to plant them again. Well, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy growing.